One of the most exciting things I've seen in technology and with the blockchain and with the space that's out there has been Steemit. I saw this program back in 2016, looked at it, got into it, started writing content, started producing video and audio, and we were able to get paid for it. That is really nice. It had a strong freedom and liberty orientation, and I think that's good. However, things have changed, and now Steemit is not what it used to be, but there's some good opportunities. And to sort through all of this smoke and the haze of what's going on, I've got one of the guys I think is one of the best anywhere to help us. My buddy Luke Stokes, who joins us right now from his place out there in Puerto Rico. Luke, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Terry. I appreciate it.
Well, I admire you, sir. You've been a witness. You've worked with Steemit from the beginning. You have been there, and you've helped us also in understanding Steam versus Steemit and what that is. Tell us kind of from the big picture what this whole thing is for someone who says, I have not heard of Steemit, I don't know what it is, but there's some new opportunities. Tell us what's going on and Steam versus Steemit, how all that puts together and comes together in this.
Yeah, I'd love to. As you know, it's been a big passion of mine for a long time. I joined in the summer of 2016. I've actually been in blockchain since January 2013 and got very excited about seeing the Steemit idea of and the Steam blockchain idea, where you could have uncensorable content, where you could just have everyday people out there blogging and owning their own content in a really unique way, and also being rewarded with tokens that the community determines has value on their own. And so I was very excited about the project. It had some concerns though with how many of the tokens, about 80% of the tokens that were kind of, they call it ninja mined, kind of obtained by the founding company.
Ninja money, I like that. That's
yeah, they call it ninja mine. They went and
ninja mine,
it used to be a proof of work chain that moved to what's called now delegated proof of stake. And in the proof of work phase of the chain, they were able to run software to gain the tokens, and they gained a lot of tokens, and they had some pretty crazy hyperinflation. One of my earlier posts talked about how at the time the CEO Ned Scott was making $700,000 a week, which I was like, I know a little bit about economics, and I don't think that's sustainable.
Yeah, so we can call it that, but then Zimbabwe dollars maybe.
Exactly, it was just like this. No, and that was US dollar equivalent at that time, based on the market price of the token. It was just kind of insane. But as the things kind of shaked out, eventually there became this distinction between, people understood that the Steam blockchain itself was completely owned and operated by the community of block producers and token holders, the Steam token holders who vote those block producers in. And then Steemit.com was just one of what became many interfaces to that content. And Steemit incorporated the company behind the initial launch of the chain, everything that would be Dan Larimer and Ned Scott and their team that they built. We're kind of just a normal centralized company running a centralized website on Steemit.com to provide access to this decentralized, beautiful blockchain. And so what happened over time, people kind of got a little frustrated with how that was happening, how that was being run. And eventually that, we could talk about how that turned into the Hive situation. But essentially,
it's kind of the short answer on that would be that things didn't go as people wanted it to, right?
Yeah. It's been a really amazing exploration of governance and blockchain governance in particular, where a community of people come together to protect their value that they've put into this. Like I said, I've been in this for years and years and years. And so protecting that value, and that may even mean moving to a new brand, but keeping all the content, keeping all the blockchain data. And that's essentially what took place. So we could talk more about that transition. It was a really fascinating moment in blockchain governance as well.
Yeah, it was really interesting because what we did essentially is you kind of duplicate, we did a copy and then paste to another place to Hive. And Hive is there. And so we see Steemit is there. And for those that choose to be over there in a more centralized format, create content, they're welcome to do that. But many people have chosen to move over to Hive. And I would say that's you. Is that correct? You are with those people?
Definitely. And I think I would go so far as to say a majority of the community has decided to make that move. And the reason for that is, we don't have to go into all the details, but it's pretty clear it's all on chain, the evidence of centralization. And at one point I did a post about how the chain itself was what's called Sybil attack. There was one person basically putting up 20 sock puppet accounts, funding them all so that they could be block producers, witnesses on the chain. And so then the blockchain that used to be this beautifully decentralized system became completely centralized. And that was done through collusion with a few exchanges that later went on Twitter and basically apologized and said that they were misled. And so essentially there was a number of things that led to that moment There were things that the block producers did, the witnesses did, the community did, and we wouldn't have to get into all that history. But ultimately, a direction was taken that was a centralizing action, and there were a group of people that said, we're not going to participate in a centralized system. We want decentralized, voluntary interactions where people can't be censored. As we were talking earlier, one of my accounts is now fundamentally censored on the Steam blockchain because the only running API at this point, because all the other community APIs have left, and there's only one being run at this point, and it's being run by Steam Incorporated, and they've decided to implement censorship on that layer. So the different interfaces that used to be able to access the Steam blockchain very easily and show data like busy.org, steampeak.com, eSteam, and of course steemit.com, now all of those are under the same level of censorship, unfortunately. And that's, again, most of the people that were excited about Steam, the blockchain, were not interested in censorship, obviously. They wanted to be in a decentralized media platform where they couldn't be controlled or told what to do, what they can and can't post. So that's why a lot of the community, like myself, has moved to Hive.
Yeah, and so those that are saying, well, I don't know anything about Steemit, I've never heard of it before, but they have an opportunity now to write content, to be in a community where you're not going to get thrown out. It won't be it's not centralized. It is highly decentralized, meaning you got a lot of opportunities. Let's talk about Hive. Tell me about Hive and the opportunities for someone who says, I don't know anything about Steemit. I just want to get ahead, live in freedom, create content, and be with some wonderful people.
That's a great way to put it. I think one of the challenges even early on with the way, the Steam situation was described is people were like, oh, I can blog and make money. It's like, well, you might, but ultimately, and this took me a while myself to figure out, is that the real value of this community is just that, the community, the value of this entire ecosystem. And I've been to Lisbon, Portugal. I've been to Krakow, Poland with my family. I've been to, where else was the last year?
Did you get to Amsterdam for the first one?
I missed the Amsterdam one. I couldn't convince my wife that it was worth going to.
I was in C over at there in Lisbon. You got a chance to be there. I remember. Really enjoyed that a lot.
And this last one was in Bangkok, and it was amazing. So we went to Thailand and Ayutthaya. So those relationships that I built both on the blockchain blogging and also in person in these meetups, it's just been phenomenal. And so I would say the value of Hive is the community. It's a place where you can express yourself, put your content out there. There's people that write poems, they write reviews, they do video with 3Speak, they do content, they do art, a lot of beautiful, wonderful things. And unlike a lot of the centralized platforms today, whether that's YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, they control the content that's there, and they can control access to that content because it's not your content. Whereas on a blockchain, the content that's put on that chain is actually put there by something called a private key. And that's a secret that that no one else knows. And you're able to use that secret to publish information, and nobody can take that information away from you. And what's key about that is that, of course, you have to have a distributed nature of your community. And this is kind of what broke down with Steam, but what is still maintained in Hive is all that community, all the value moved over to Hive to continue running great things like peakd.com, which is a version of what used to be steampeak.com. Also hive.blog, which is kind of a version of what used to be steemit.com. There's the Hive keychain wallet. There's the Hive Connect wallet.
So let me make sure we got this. So someone's got there. It's hive.blog, hive.blog. And they go over there, and that's where they would see how they can start creating content.
Yeah, and you can actually sign up even at hive.io as well. There's a process there to go ahead and sign up. And some of those processes may actually take a little bit of money, and I want to explain that a little bit. The way a blockchain works is nothing on a blockchain can be free. The blockchain ecosystem itself kind of enforces that there has to be some skin in the game and some stake, right? If something was free on the blockchain, then someone could just repeat that action over and over again, bloat the whole thing to the point where there would be no one that would want to run the software to keep that blockchain alive. So creating an account may cost like $1 or $2 to get your account set up. And that gives you a little minimum amount of what's called resource credits. So you have the ability to post, maybe a certain number of comments or posts. But like most things in life, when you want to do more with it and you want to actually engage in it at a higher level, you're going to have some skin in the game. And that's what's called Hive or Hive Power. You take your Hive and you power it up, take your liquid Hive tokens, and you lock them into a contract that if you want to get them back, they're still yours, but you get them back over 13 weeks. And what's nice about this particular blockchain model is that the interactions on the chain are completely free under that model. Whereas with Ethereum and Bitcoin, in most situations, every time you interact with that blockchain, you have to pay a fee, and that fee is gone forever. Whereas with it goes out to the validators. In this situation, the validators, the block producers, the witnesses, however, whatever terminology you want, the people who run the system, right? They get paid through voluntary inflation. But the people who interact with the chain don't actually have to spend their money to do so. They get to take their stake, lock it up, and based on how much they've locked up, that kind of determines how much they can interact with the chain. And yourself as well, we've locked up enough in those contracts that we can do whatever we want on the chain without any concerns. Just like we do on Facebook and Twitter, we can post as much as we want, and we're never limited by that.
Yeah, so it seems like someone could, correct me if I'm wrong on this, someone could say, hey, I'm going to put some money over there, and I'll do that in the form of cryptocurrency. So let's say someone has Bitcoin, a very popular cryptocurrency. Say, okay, they could take that Bitcoin, put it into Hive. It's converted to, is it called Hive Dollars?
Well, there are 3 different currencies. Just like Steam had, Hive has a similar situation. So you have your liquid currency, the main currency, which is Hive, the Hive token, HIVE. And then you'll have the Hive blockchain dollar, which is the HBD. That is loosely pegged at $1 worth of Hive. It's kind of almost to be considered a debt certificate because you can actually convert one of those back to $1 worth of Hive.
To a US dollar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I say loosely because the pegging algorithm there certainly could use some work. And then
Not
there's
an exact 1-to-1 ratio, but I would be able to get some US dollars for some Hive dollars.
Yeah, it's done in such a way that there's a bit of arbitrage to try to keep that peg somewhat where it should be. Mm-hmm. And then in addition, you have Hive that can be powered up to become Hive Power. And this is, when you have Hive Power, that's when you get to participate in the governance, which is voting for the block producers, the witnesses who govern the chain and secure it, and also get to vote for content. So when you see content you like, you can say, oh, I like that. I'm going to vote for it. And the more Hive Power you have, the more Hive you have that is powered up into this 13-week contract, the more you get to influence what's called the rewards pool. So essentially, I see great content from my friend Terry, and I'm like, hey, man, that's great content. That's super valuable. I want to take my Hive Power, give him a big, strong vote, and then he'll show on that post, there's a potential payout that increases. And then 7 days later, as long as, and this should be importantly discussed, others can disagree, and they can also do a negative vote with their same Hive Power. So that is some interaction that you might have as a new member to Hive. If you get excited, oh, look, I'm going to get $1 of Hive, and then someone comes along and votes it to 0, just know that's how the system works. Don't take it personally. Some people do that kind of thing. But essentially, with your Hive Power, you get to make a decision, and collectively, all the different people that vote get to determine this rewards pool, this inflation. Who does it go to on a given day? How much of it is split up according to the different content that's about to be paid out?
Yeah, so I think the bottom line is someone can create content. They can write, they can produce video, they can produce audio, they can put content out there that people value. And as other people value it, now they have a way to say, hey, I like that. I want to give you some real money. Here we go. And it's going to be in the form of Hive, which can be converted. Ultimately, you can get US dollars, you can get euros, you can get the currency that you want and be able to spend it that way. So this opens up some real possibilities.
And it's really interesting. There are other blockchain-based kind of social media and content creation platforms, like Minds is another one. There's a few others. And a lot of them are designed in such a way that you essentially, if you want to give someone, it's done through micro tipping or tips. So 1, you still have to pay the fees like we talked about before, but also 2, there's a bit of a loss aversion. It's like, well, I'd like you to get rewarded, but I don't know that I want to give you my dollar, right? And so what's interesting about the way Hive does it is that when you vote and you see that value go up on that post, you didn't lose anything at all of your own value. Your Hive tokens didn't get transferred to that person when you voted. What you essentially did is indicated to the blockchain software that you would like this post to be rewarded as it's distributing the voluntary inflation. So there is inflation, there's new Hive currency being created all the time, and that is being distributed based on the stakeholders and how they'd like to reward the content there.
Excellent. For someone who is going to be watching this and is a content creator, what type of content do you find does particularly well on Hive now?
That's a really interesting question. And it's funny because I've been asked that question for almost 4 years now, even back when it was Steam. And my answer has always kind of been like, it's hard to say, it's like what kind of content does well on any social media platform? What goes viral on Twitter, what does well on Facebook? And a lot of that relates to the community of people you're a part of. And that relates also to the community of people you're a part of on Hive that have Hive Power, right? That's another interesting part of the dynamics of the economics and the motivational psychology involved here. And one thing that is new and very exciting about this, which is probably something you may haven't seen, Terry, because it's relatively new, is the communities. So you can actually go on Hive and create your own community. And you can actually have eventually your own token once the smart media tokens and are deployed as well within your community. So in that situation, you can actually have moderation. You can decide who's going to be a participant, who's not. And in those communities, you know, again, based on the type of people that you interact with, depending on how much Hive power they have, they might be able to reward you more or less than other content. But I do want to set good expectations for people. If they do come, it's just like if you came to Twitter today, created a new account, and you tweeted out the best tweet ever. No one would know about it because you don't have any followers. You don't have, you know, so you don't have an influencer who's following you. Now on the flip side, if you do have an influencer and they retweet you and they say, hey, all my 2 million followers, here's someone you should really follow. They've got some great insight. All of a sudden, of course, you would get a whole lot of new retweets and a lot of new followers, and you'd get your content shared a lot more. It's a very similar situation with Hive, where if you come with an expectation that you're just going to create great content and get paid, you're probably going to be disappointed. But if you come with an expectation to tap into the real value, which is the relationships, and you start building those relationships with people that have been on Hive for a long time, that have invested their own hard money. I've financially probably been the worst financial investment I've ever made. I think I put in about 9 Bitcoin into Steam back in the day before it became Hive. And I, you know, watched it. It was $2, $3 a piece, and I watched it go to 7 cents. And I can tell you honestly, with a smile, I have no regrets, because although it was a terrible financial decision, it was an amazing personal decision. And I've since made, you know, money back in different ways as far as blogging and being a witness. And the relationships I've made have been tremendously valuable. But the point being, I wasn't there for the money. I wasn't there for an expectation that I'm somehow going to get paid and that's going to make it all worth it. I've really been there for the true value, which is the relationships in the community. So coming into that expectation that if you build relationships with people that are part of the community, that maybe are investors and are looking for great content to support, to kind of increase the value for everyone. Because if you come to a website and it's got great content, you're probably going to come back, right? So the more the great content comes to the surface, the more the network will grow, which increases the value for investors. So there is an incentive for investors. There's also curation rewards, which we could talk about a little bit. So maybe you're not a content creator, but you actually want to go out and find great content and promote it. You can actually get a reward for voting for other great content. So there's a lot of great opportunities there.
It's a great opportunity right now. Hive is really just getting started. It's been around for just a short time. And so you watching this, you're thinking, hey, I write content, I produce videos. Here's a way for you to get into a wonderful community that you're going to get to know worldwide. You're going to be able to create content that people will consume. People will let you know what it's like. I think one of the best benefits that we saw over on Steemit was when someone would upvote you. It's not just the money you'd get. It's a real good market test. If you see something you put out there gets a lot of attention, hey, that's good. But you also get good market value when you put something out there and not much happens at all. This way, with real dollars, well, Steam dollars that we were using over there, you get some good feedback. So now is the time to get on. If you say, I don't know anything about it, hey, welcome to the game. Right now, it's brand new. Luke, if someone says, hey, I want to get to know more about this guy, Luke Stokes, and what he's doing, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
You can always go to my website, lukestokes.info, or you can follow me.
Please spell that for us for those that might not be native English speakers.
It's LUKESTOKES.INFO. And also, it's the same Luke Stokes on Twitter, the same Luke Stokes on Telegram, and the same Luke Stokes on Steam and now Hive. So if you want to reach me, I'm not going to be active on Steam anymore, but I will be very active on Hive as well. So I would be blog or hive.blog/@Luke Stokes. Or also another website I want to make sure we highlight is PeakD. That's PEAKD.com. That's another interface to the Hive blockchain. So you could go to peak.com or peakd.com/@Luke Stokes, and I would be there as well. One of the things I would encourage you to do is reach out to people in comments, just like you would in real life. You know, instead of going down to the corner and just broadcasting, hey, I did something great, you could maybe show up to someone and say, you did something great. I'm going to leave a great comment, and you can start building relationships there. And when it's relevant, you can potentially link out to your content within those comments. But again, as you would relationally, you know, just as you would meet people in real life, try to meet people on chain in a similar way, and you'll probably find yourself having much more success.
Luke Stokes, you're a wonderful guy. You've got a lot of wisdom. You've got a kind heart. You've helped people like me in learning what's going on, how to use this stuff. Any final words you would leave to that person who's watching this, is thinking about getting into Hive, getting into producing content in crypto? What would you tell that person?
I would say, just to reiterate what I said previously, that the value here is the community. It is the relationships you're going to build. And also to, I would encourage you to dive a little deeper to learn about the actual blockchain technology itself. What makes Hive interesting? Why is it different than Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of these other platforms? And the moment you understand that, hopefully will be the moment you'll understand it before you need it. And what I mean by that is, hopefully you'll be excited about that technology, understand your private keys, how to work with them prior to getting censored. And this is what we're seeing again and again, people that get demonetized, they get kicked off of different platforms that they build their entire, business and audience on. If you understand the value of decentralization and blockchain technology, I think you're really going to enjoy Hive that much more.
Luke, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
And for those of you watching, I'm Terry Brock. Get into this. Take a look at what's available now. It's a great opportunity. I know for me, it's been really fulfilling more than anything. Like Luke said, the community. Getting to know some really good folks, learning about what's going on in the world. Get over there, take a look at it, and enjoy it. Be sure and drop us a line and share this with others that are watching it as well. I'm Terry Brock at terrybrock.com. Thank you for being with us today.